4 divisions, 4 hosts, all battling it out for the Holy GrAHL of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL Podcast with Andrew Rinaldi, Deana Weinheimer, Jeremy Paul, Michael Liu, and Zach Power.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 27 of Field Pass Hockey's AHL podcast, the Holy GrAHL. If you're looking for something other than hockey, well, sorry, you're in the wrong place. But if you want to know more about the American Hockey League and their yearly race to their Holy GrAHL, the Calder Cup, well, friends, you are in the right place. But before we get too far into this, like always, we're going to open the show by going around the screen here, introducing ourselves. And since Andrew is back, all is right in the world. RA is here and he will lead us off.
I always say if you're hearing this voice, then you're in the right place. And that voice is that of me, Andrew Rinaldi. I am the beat writer here for the Chicago Wolves and Grand Rapids Griffins. A little 2-for-1 coming at you here. And the jury's still out on Grand Rapids, but we got the Wolves on the quest for their next Holy GrAHL here, and I am all for it.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why I thought I was next. Why did I say okay. Yeah? Yeah.
We're just continuing from last week's episode where everything was confusion.
It was so unhinged. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I am Deana Weinheimer. I am your moderator, AHL editor, and your Cleveland Monsters correspondent, kind of neglecting her duties for another Tuesday night instead of covering Monsters hockey. I'm here with you fine folks. I only have one thing to say, and that's Hartford. What are you doing? More on that later in the show. Jeremy, now you can take it away.
A lot more. And speaking on neglecting your duties, what's up, everyone? My name's Jeremy. I am a writer here at Field Pass Hockey, covering the Rochester Americans in my first season. And if you don't like what I have to say on this episode, well, then my name is Zach Power.
Oh.
Uh-oh. And speaking of, our friends Zach Power and Michael Liu will not be able to join us this evening, unfortunately. So you have the three of us, 3 Americans, and we're just going to carry this show on. But stick around because we have a very special guest bringing us some perspectives on a Canadian market, the Laval Rocket, Deanna McFeron, coming up at the midpoint of the show. But before that, let's get into some breaking news. Now, guys, we have a new player of the week. Providence Bruins goaltender Brandon Bussey has been selected as the AHL player of the week for last week. But if you were like me and did not recognize the name at all, it's for good reason. The 23-year-old just signed a 1-year entry-level contract for next season with the Boston Bruins on March 30th. Then he joined Providence on an amateur tryout contract. So he actually finally made his debut over the weekend, and boy, he shined in 2 road starts, helping lead Providence to regain first place in the Atlantic Division race. He got the call Saturday night in Lehigh Valley, recorded 28 saves, including 4 in overtime, then stopped all 3 Phantom shootout attempts to earn a 3-2 victory. Came back the very next night, Sunday evening, made 26 saves in a 1-0 shutout win versus the Hershey Bears in Hershey, garnering first star honors, finishing the weekend, his very first of his pro career, with a .96 goals against average and a .964 save percentage. And then, of course, with Sunday's victory, Providence leapfrogging over the Charlotte Checkers and Springfield Thunderbirds and into the top spot with only 2 weeks remaining in the regular season. Wow, what a start to a pro career.
Where does Providence, and by extension Boston, keep finding these goalies? It's at this point, I don't even get surprised by it anymore, because if you just look at the top goaltending stats, I mean, we see Troy Grosnick there, as he's been for quite a large chunk of the season. But I mean, you know, they've had Bussey come in, and impressed as soon as he stepped in. I mean, to go in and do what you're doing in your first 2 games, that's incredible by any standard. So, but it's just, they just keep churning these guys out. I mean, earlier in the season, it was John Gillies, and they even had Jeremy Swayman in there for a hot minute. So, I would not want to try and score a goal against the Providence Bruins. It doesn't end very well for the opposing team.
It's like Providence is that proverbial person that goes to like flea markets and garage sales and always ends up finding like the priceless piece of art. Either that or they're just like finding them at the dollar store for next to nothing. And then it ends up being like the best purchase you ever made. I'm jealous. I'd like to know what that's like.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm telling you, because there are teams out there, record scratch, the Rochester Americans, that can't find goaltending if they hired a private investigator to do so. For teams like Providence to do this and at the exact right time. I mean, you talk about a time where, having really, really, really efficient goaltending is important. Well, you're looking at it. It's the rush to the playoffs. It's the playoffs. And Providence is setting itself up to be a real contender out of the Atlantic. I don't know if any of those teams in the Atlantic really stand a chance necessarily, but Providence is making a case.
You forget about the rambunctious crowds of the Bojangles Coliseum, my friend.
You're so right. That's still defending.
I'm gone for 1 week and we stop hyping up the Charlotte Checkers.
You're right. The defending champions.
I just want to go down there and get a picture outside of it, and just because it's just fantastic. Bojangles Coliseum. It's amazing. I love it. Don't ever change it. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to our week in review. It's going to be a little bit shorter than what we normally do here. One, because we do have a special guest on the show, and one, because we just have so many important milestones that we have to talk about. One specifically, we're going to start our week in review segment with an extremely important moment for equality and opportunity in the game. AHL referee Jordan Samuels-Thomas has actually made his debut in the NHL last Thursday, but in doing so, it also marked the first time in NHL history that 2 Black on-ice officials worked a game together. He paired up alongside linesman Shandor Alfonso in the Chicago Blackhawks 5-4 shootout win against the San Jose Sharks at the United Center in Chicago. Now, again, this was Samuels-Thomas's NHL debut and the first time a Black on-ice official wore the orange and black referee armbands since Jay Scherers worked the New York Islanders Carolina Hurricanes game in Carolina on April 2nd, 2004. Now, to kind of bring this story full circle and to round it out, Scherers, who actually became the first Black on-ice official in the NHL on October 6, 1990, back when the Quebec Nordiques played at the Boston Bruins, was also at the United Center on Thursday, working as the managing official. Now, Samuels-Thomas is an AHL playing alumni as well, with 56 points, 28 goals, and 28 assists across 195 AHL games with Rochester, Ontario, and San Diego, while also tallying 55 points, 20 goals, 35 assists in 69 ECHL games with Manchester, Utah, Florida, South Carolina, and Worcester.
Yeah, and just a fun little tidbit about that. Samuels-Thomas in his playing career award number 42 in honor of Jackie Robinson. Obviously, it's baseball time, so that's important. I mean, that's just a little tie back. And in the NHL game, he wore the ref sweater number 42 as well. So just a little bit of a tie back to his playing days and honoring those who came before him.
And it's been another step and kind of breaking these barriers here for this league. And I think, which I've said before, I think has kind of been the story of the league this season, whether it's been for female officials, whether it's been for an all Black crew. Well, I mean, technically in the NHL, but getting to make his debut after getting his start here in the AHL. Again, this is why it's important to happen here in this league, is because then you're going to start seeing it move on up into the National League, onto the big stage. And, we love to see it. And it just keeps harping back to the theme that it doesn't, matter what you look like. If you're the best for the job, then you're going to go out there and do it. And it's just a feel good story. I love it.
You were talking about the female the female officials in the game. He was actually part of the group of officials that was hired by the NHL back in September, officiating several preseason games, though he has spent most of this season and last season working in the American Hockey League. And it just goes back to that, back to the beginning of the season where we talked about the female officials that are being found in the ref combines, the ref tryouts, and then they go into the ECHL, AHL to kind of hone their skills and then go up. So it's a true development league for everybody. And it's great to see somebody, that didn't quite get to live his dream of becoming an NHL player, but he gets to do it on the ice. He still gets to skate on NHL ice while breaking some amazing barriers along the way. So my heartfelt congratulations to him and all the officials that have made such huge strides this year. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get back into the American Hockey League talk. And Andrew, since you're back, this just, this fits. Honestly, is there any stopping the Chicago Wolves at this point? With a 6-4 win over Texas last Friday, the Wolves clinched the Central Division title, their 5th in the last 6 years and 10th across 21 seasons since joining the AHL. What is that?
In case you haven't heard, the Chicago Wolves are really good at hockey. I think so there's a bit of a development in that over the weekend. Unfortunately, Alex Lyon kind of went down with an injury on Friday night. So Pyotr Kochetkov kind of had to rein in a couple of those wins there. And unfortunately, he did suffer his first regulation loss of the season. Now he's down to a paltry 13-1-1 record. So, just a real kind of, you hate to see it. I mean, just kind of falling apart here. And then he was rewarded with that regulation loss with a call up to the Carolina Hurricanes with Freddie Anderson going down. And I mean, you imagine Lyon would have been the guy in any other circumstance, but you can't. I mean, this kid's been unbelievable. The whole team has been unbelievable from top to bottom. I mean, what more can you say that we haven't already discussed at length on this pod that I haven't, gushed about on Twitter or on my articles about, whether it's the top line producers producing. Steph Nason has the chance to be the first 50 goal scorer since 2010. Andrew Podorowski is doing what he's been doing ever since, we gave him that nice little springboard on the pod, how you doing? And the depth players that know their role, from Spencer Smallman, the Jack Drury, Jameson Reese. I mean, I spoke of their depth in that. And I spoke on a Carolina Hurricanes related podcast and about how I, asking me about a number of prospects, and I kept going, oh, I really like this guy. Oh, I really like this guy. Oh, I really like this guy. And it just keeps going on down the list. They're just, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't know if they can be stopped. I don't want to just sound like a biased beat reporter, but when you look at the talent, when you look at the depth, and when you look at a week like they had against Texas, a team that's desperate for points in order to make it into that last spot in the Central, and Chicago, they find themselves down here or there. Texas came out on Friday and Saturday with a couple of early goals, and the Wolves just found a way to not just rely on their talent, but to really grind out a couple of victories to clinch that Central. It's, if they can't beat you one way, they'll just beat you another. And it's just been a running theme. Ask anyone who's been playing against them in the Central. It's not fun. It's fun.
Well, it's been a big, exciting week for Andrew Podorowski as well. Congratulations are in order as he welcomed a baby into the family. So congratulations to the Podorowski family. Saw the pictures on Instagram. Adorable. Just many congratulations, and hope that baby and mother are doing well and that all three of them are getting plenty of rest. Podorowski hit a nice milestone. Stefan Mason maybe getting a milestone. But let's talk about some milestones on the ice that happened this past week. And, the kids that are coming out of college and into the professional leagues for the first time, they're pretty good. A lot of them getting first tallies. So first, we're going to talk about Providence's Michael Callahan. He actually tallied his first professional goal in a 1-0 win over the Hershey Bears, coming at 13:41 of the third against Phoenix Copley. Next, fresh out of St. Cloud State University, Nick Perbix also has now tallied his first professional goal, coming as a member of the Syracuse Crunch with his on the sixth game with the team back on April 16th in a 5-1 victory over the Toronto Marlies. And now Zach isn't here, so this doesn't make as much sense, but I don't think Jeremy laughed as much, but Zach definitely did. Last week when I said, lead the way, Michael Mersch, to Rochester's playoff hopes, well, looks like he's doing just that, having scored his career best 25th goal last Saturday.
Yeah, he's got a goal against Springfield tonight as we're recording on Tuesday, so make it 26. He's been somebody who, I wrote at the beginning of the season was going to have to be somebody who showed up for the Amherst, and he really has in a really meaningful way. I mean, he's the veteran presence on a team full of really talented and skilled rookies such as JJ Peterka and Jack Quinn, and I think you can put all those pieces together and have a really successful team during the regular season, but it's all up to guys like a Michael Mersch to be a real driving force during a playoff run. And if the Amherst find a way to squeeze into it, he's going to be important to them, and he's got to continue playing the game that he's played to this point in the season. And it's really a cool thing for the Amherst captain to be this involved in the play and to be this important to the offense.
Now, to kind of kick off this segment, we talked about goalies starting out hot, but I've got another one for you guys. Now, in his first pro game after 4 years with St. Cloud State University, David Hrenak actually recorded the Ontario Reign's first shutout of the season back on April 15th in a 3-0 victory over San Diego. Oh, yeah, he had 25 saves. And yeah, did I mention it was his pro debut?
What's with these goalies coming in and just making unreal starts out of down the stretch in these important games? Like it's no big deal. I mean, playing big games in college and all that, but to just jump right in and just say, how are you now? It's impressive. And it's also like the first shutout for Ontario all year. This team that's been in the top of the Pacific, that's had countless opportunities against Tucson or San Jose, and you haven't got one shutout yet. That's kind of a remarkable stat in of itself.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. A juggernaut like the Ontario Reign having gotten 0 shutouts up to this point. I think we need to bring Jake Forster on to talk about that and see what happened. So, but Andrew, are you okay? you had a very concerned look on your face just now.
Yeah, unfortunately, the as we're recording here on Tuesday night, the Iowa Wild just scored their third goal to go up 3-0 over the Griffins, who are in that same desperately fighting for that playoff spot, and that's rough. That's rough.
On the flip side of that, somehow the Cleveland Monsters managed to beat the Utica Comets in overtime after the Utica Comets gave up 3 unanswered, then scored with a minute remaining in regulation. I thought Cleveland was going to Cleveland, but they actually, Tyler Sekera finally, he's been struggling this season, but he managed to get the overtime winning goal in a minute 31. So
Yeah, well,
good job, Sicky.
right. And what a night for the beat writers to be recording a podcast as I sit here and I watch Rochester and Springfield about to enter a shootout. So really just not a great time to be a beat writer on Field Pass Hockey and recording the Holy Grail. it's a night of many conflicts. This might be the first time that all of our teams are playing games as we're recording.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think Lehigh Valley might have just sealed their fate. They just lost 5-4 to Providence. All right, well, let's go ahead and get back to last week and not tonight. So also this past Friday was a big day for first. Jeez. Viktor Lodin also jumped on the first AHL goal train, scoring for the Belleville Senators against Rochester. Sorry, Jeremy, on a penalty shot. That kicked off the scoring that eventually led them to a 2-1 victory. Then, talk about a hot start, he scored again the next night. I believe it was the first goal as well, in a victory over the Utica Comets. Now, to round out our milestone, I have a nice one-timer shot if you guys want to see that clip real quick. Just a beautiful one-timer.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty. That came from Ethan Frank, coming off a career-high season with Western Michigan University, 39 points, 28 games. Now, as you just saw, he has his first professional goal in only his second pro game. Last Friday, power play tally in the dying seconds of the man advantage in a Hershey Bears 3-2 overtime loss against Wilkes-Barre Scranton. But it actually ended a streak of 30 straight penalties killed for the Pens.
That's impressive.
Yeah, you don't hear that 30 straight. I had to go back and double check that. Like, wait, no, is that number right? That was very impressive.
Those Western Michigan guys having themselves a week. I mean, between Brandon Bussey and then here we go, another first.
Well, let's go from things that are impressive to things that aren't so impressive. And we're going to have a first here at the Holy Grail, where we're not going to give an oomph of the week. We are actually going to go ahead and preemptively give our oof of the year.
We jumped right past the oof of the month and went right to oof of the year, which this is kind of deserving of it, though.
It feels right.
Yes. If you guys weren't listening to last week's episode, you might want to go listen to that first and then listen to this next segment because it'll make so much more sense. So anyway, drum roll, please. Oof of the year. Well, last week's episode, we had our eyes set squarely on the Hartford Wolfpack. It was their destiny to claim a playoff berth, and they fell flat on their face.
Yeah, that's gone.
And it's gone. It's still good. It's still good. It's gone. Well, 3-game losing streak and a 1-8-1-0 in their last 10. Yeah, by the day, it's becoming increasingly clear that they're going to be missing out on the playoffs. But you guys may be wondering, why is this an oof? Okay, they're not making the playoffs. So what? Why are you being so hard on Hartford? Well, just because a month ago, they legitimately looked like a contender, a lock for the playoffs, if you would. A month ago, I went back and looked at the standings on March the 15th, where they were third in the Atlantic, 27-18, 5-2 record, 61 points, and a .587 points percentage, 155 goals for, 151 goals against. Since that time, they've gone 3-13, 1-0. Now, our lovely colleague, Zach Power, has actually given us a few clips to help illustrate this more. So, guys, go ahead. Feel free to talk while I go ahead and show these.
I mean, it's bad, right? Like, so like what you're showing right now, the start of the season, we've got some normal pros, or, our usual suspects that we've talked about pretty much all season. I mean, your Uticas of the world, your Stocktons, Ontario, and Springfield, all of which, I mean, at some point or another have found themselves basically sitting atop of their division here as we approach the end of the regular season. But then you get Hartford, who was off to a really hot start. I mean, a 750 win percentage about, 12, 13 games into the season. And even still, they start the season 10-3-1, and things are looking good. And then they continue to stay hot. I mean, they follow it in probably 20 some odd games in the year. I mean, they're looking good. They're always a part of the conversation. I mean, we had it on the show, always talking about Hartford at the top of the pack. No pun intended. At the beginning of the season, I mean, 18 games in.
Look at that. They were at the top of the division.
It's bad. And I mean, everything else looks kind of like what it looks like now, except for Hartford.
Yeah, what I'm showing on the screen now, for those of you who may be listening on your favorite podcasting app and not joining us on YouTube, is a tweet from Ricky Milliner. We've actually kind of he's been a great Atlantic Division resource here for me the last few weeks. But he says on December 11th, 2021, with Springfield dropping tonight's games 3-0 against Providence, Hartford is now first. At that point, they were 12-4-2-0 with a 7.22 points percentage. Again, good for first in the Atlantic. Hartford, what are you doing? What did you do? What happened?
So my heart just absolutely goes out to former Chicago Wolf Maxim Latunov, who saw himself getting traded, and just imagining him as a key piece, a guy who would be on the second unit of the power play and big part of the penalty kill, and be like, that real versatile, like, third or fourth line center that the Wolves leaned on heavily in certain situations. And like, okay, yeah, you're at this first place team that's just kind of, running certain teams over. You're just having a great time with the season. Then he gets traded to Hartford, and just, I can't. I feel so. I hope Max isn't beating himself up too hard about that, because that's a tough one. But I don't. Where did it go wrong? I mean, admittedly, I've been here and there on the Wolfpack. I'm pretty sure Johnny Brodzinski got called up to the Rangers, and he was their leading scorer. And you lose a guy like that, it's going to be tough. But okay, so yeah, Brodzinski hasn't actually played for the Wolfpack since February. So he put up those 39 points in 36 games, set the Atlantic on fire. And that seems about right about the time that Hartford was on top of the division. But again, one player doesn't make your team. Does it? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he was the heart and soul of that squad, and once he got called up, which is unfortunate. But this is the nature of this league. If I guess we weren't reading in between the lines of this team, but. Nothing that doesn't make sense. That record in the second half of the season doesn't make sense, for even if you did read in between the lines. Something, I don't know if it was player personnel, if it was coaching, if it was, it had to have been a little bit of everything for it all to come crumbling down that bad. I mean, okay, you take a couple steps back. Who doesn't? I could see, maybe you fall down the fourth or fifth or something, but you got overtaken by Bridgeport.
I mean, what's honestly kind of sad is, I mean, they're falling down into the rank of like Lehigh Valley. I mean, as of, let's say, April 18th, the points percentage for Lehigh Valley was .479. For Hartford, a 4.93. I mean, they're starting to fall down into Lehigh Valley territory. And this is a team, like we showed you, that was top of the Atlantic at one point, even just a month ago, top 3. I'd be interested to go back and look to see what players they've lost, or if we can like pinpoint this is it, or was it just a whole systematic breakdown. But guys, we hate to do it, but you get our oof of the year. Oh my gosh, it was just, yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, when you approach Lehigh Valley territory, that's oof of the year.
All right. Well, enough picking on Hartford for now. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about whenever they are eventually finally eliminated from playoff contention. But just watch. They listen to us like, everyone else does, and they turn it on and surprise us all. I doubt it, but crazier things have happened. All right. Talking about crazy, this segment can get a little crazy sometimes. It's our swipe left or swipe right segment. Rules are simple. Andrew and Jeremy are going to give us their hot takes from the league. And if we disagree, we'll swipe left. If we agree, we'll swipe right. If we really agree, we get one per month. We're going to super swipe up. So, Jeremy, you never really get to lead this one off. So I'm going to let you take honors this time.
Thank you so much. Mine this time is the least complicated hot take I've ever had. I am one for a complicated hot take. My hot take is quite simply, as we look at the standings right now, and I'm going to complicate it. I literally cannot believe I'm going to complicate it. As I say this, I don't know if Rochester's win in overtime jumps them up to be in 5th over Toronto. It might. I don't think the AHL website has updated on points percentage. Nevertheless, this is keeping in mind that at the time that I made this hot take, Toronto is in the last playoff spot for the North. I think that your 23 teams are set. I think that the teams that are in right now are the teams that'll make it. Again, that's saying that Toronto will make it in over Rochester, but I just don't see any of these teams really breaking. I think, quite frankly, the only division that has that possibility is Rochester and Toronto, but I think everything is set.
I
will say the field is set, the 23 teams. Now the seeding, that could be a hot mess, but the field is set.
All my experience on all these swiping apps have only taught me that it's complicated. Even under the surface, you might think it's not complicated. And I'm aiming for not complicated, but there's always layers of complication underneath it. It's tough because there is one scenario this weekend that makes me not want to commit to this. I saw a lot of fight from the Texas Stars, and it just couldn't match up to Chicago being Chicago. And they got a nice little 2-game set against Iowa, and it's in Des Moines, which might lean towards the Wild as long as they don't go full goon squad, which you never know with the Wild. But I see what your setup you got going on here. Oh, you don't want it's not a complicated take, but like I said, there's always some kind of level of crazy underneath it all where you don't think it's ever going to show up. So you know what? I'm just going to swipe left and jump right over that one because that's a trap. That's a trap right there. And it's coming from Texas. I can tell you that.
So, Jeremy, I am pleased to inform you that the website is not yet updated. And with Rochester's win, their points percentage moves up to a 5.70, which puts them in playoff contention over the Toronto Marlies. However, I also see the red flags in this take, and that North Division is still so chaotic, so close, so crazy that I can't as much as I want to say yes and right swipe it, there's too many red flags for me. Again, super chaotic, super close, all those things. I got to swipe left, my friend.
We can
Sorry.
still be friends. It's really okay. Maybe you can find me on Bumble BFF and we'll make it work that way.
If we're Bumble BFFing this, then yes, I'm totally down.
Amazing. Like, I'm a good time at a bar, but like probably don't take me home to mom kind of vibe.
I can dig it.
See it. I read it. I hear it. We're good. We're good. I'll Bumble BFF swipe, but not Tinder swipe.
Amazing.
I'm not used to going second or last or anything on these takes. I'm normally the lead off man. So all right. The last few weeks, I mean, Chicago's just looked like they've had a two-headed juggernaut in that. And I touched on it earlier between Alex Lyon and Pyotr Kochetkov. And, you know, Lyon's sitting there number 2 in goals against average in the whole AHL. And he's second really on his team, qualified goalies and all things considered. But, you know, with Lyon injured and Kochetkov called up, and depending on Freddie and the injuries between Freddie Anderson and Lyon himself, my hot take is that if Chicago's goalie situation remains shaky, I think they could really be on upset alert in round 2. I know I just talked about them being an unstoppable juggernaut, but if there's one thing you need in playoff hockey, it's steady goaltending. Ask the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I don't know that I want to. I don't know that that's a good idea. I mean, like, is their goaltending situation less sound today than it was 2 weeks ago? Yeah. Like, there's no denying that. Like, I think that there's a lot of truth to that. But I think somewhat similar to how you described Providence, it just feels like every time anybody, including ECHLers or guys from even beyond there, have been put in net in Chicago, it's worked. And they've been fine. And it's just like, I wonder if that can follow through into the playoffs, right? Like, I'm not sure, but I mean, just in looking at goals forced, I mean, Chicago's got the third most in the league, 238. You know, you can make a case that doesn't matter because Rochester scored 241 and they're trying like hell to make it into the playoffs still. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're scoring that much. You've got guys like Stefan Nason and Andrew Podorowski. I mean, like, I think their goaltending situation makes me a little bit more shaky on them being a Calder Cup contender. But I would say that I feel pretty confident about them being the team that makes it out of the Central. And so I'm gonna have to swipe left on this, but I see your point. Like, there are definitely going to be some concerns in net going into the playoffs if this is how they go in.
For context, they just lost to the Rockford Ice Hogs again, who might very well be a team that they see in that second round if they can take out the Texas Stars, who will be getting that 5th seed.
Yeah.
So, a question. Who are the goaltenders right now?
So they just called up 2 goalies from the Norfolk Admirals who just ended their season down in the East Coast. Jack LaFontaine, who had a couple games with the Wolves, and I wouldn't say he was necessarily bad, but after he signed a contract in the middle of his college season because between the Canes and the Wolves, they were just so hit by injuries and COVID that they just needed a guy. And LaFontaine was a Hurricanes draft pick who kind of just, you know, he was made available. And in 11 games, he went 2-2-4, 883 save percentage, and 285 goals against. And then their other goaltender that they called up from Norfolk is Dylan Wells, who only played 1 game so far this season with the Wolves. I believe had a losing record in Norfolk and had in that 1 game gave up 4 goals and lost in overtime with an 852 save percentage. If if the worst possible case scenario where Lyon's not available, where Freddie Anderson's injury ends up being long-term and Kochekov is in Carolina, those would be your two guys.
Whatever happened to A2 Makaniemi?
He's done for the season. He's been done. He's been out since December. Yeah.
I knew it had been a while since we talked about him. Just based on those stats alone, and I know how physical Rockford can be, I don't want to discount the play of that top line, and the experience of the defense, turning that up to play amazing in front of these younger ECHL call-ups. But if I've learned anything about American Hockey League playoffs, is to expect the unexpected, and that they get crazy. So you know what? I might just have to right swipe this one. They may be on upset alert if the worst case scenario happens.
I think you updated the profile before I swiped or after I swiped. the redo button, the little orange undo button is really looking attractive to me. I'm going to stick to my guns just to be chaotic and say that they can do it, but that hurts. That would be bad.
Yep. All right. Well, sometimes out of these relationships come wonderful children. And if you know anything about kids, they grow up so fast. Jeremy, yes, I did.
Oh my, that was good. That was good. We've done
chaotic
this 6 times and we have not gotten that connection yet. That's so good.
Yeah, that belongs in the Segway Hall of Fame.
Hey, I had to do it. We're getting to the end of the season. We're all getting a little slap happy. So anyway, let's talk about one player that has had an absolute whirlwind of a week, and that is center Thomas Bordello. Now, last Wednesday, April the 13th, he actually skated in his first professional game, which was a 6-3 loss versus Bakersfield. This was with the San Jose Barracuda. Now, in that game, he had 3 assists. Not shabby for a debut. And then 2 days later, he appeared in his second pro game, this time a 4-3 OT loss against the Abbotsford Canucks. Then just 4 days after his pro debut, he found himself on the ice with the San Jose Sharks. In 13 minutes, 14 seconds of ice time across 19 shifts, he tallied 1 assist, 1 shot, and an overtime loss, 4-5. Talk about hitting a growth spurt.
Good on him to get out of playing for the CUDA. Good on him.
But then to go to the Sharks, sorry.
Slightly better situation. It's not great, but it's better than it's better than the CUDA.
The pay rate per game is better.
Right, yeah. Silver linings, that's what it's all about.
There you go. And then finally, we're going to have Mitchell Chaffey, who actually, I believe, has already made his NHL debut here on Tuesday night after spending 73 games in the AHL, all with the Iowa Wild. So congratulations to Thomas Bordello and Mitchell Chaffey. They grew up so fast right before our eyes. All right, now we're going to go ahead and move on and welcome our special guest, Field Pass Hockey's Laval Rocket writer and my fellow AHL editor. Everyone, let's go ahead and welcome Deanna McFeron. Deanna, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's good to be here. We've been trying to figure out how to get me on here, but my schedule hasn't lined up and we got an opening, so it's exciting to be here.
Exactly. And it's perfect time to talk Laval Rocket hockey since, they're looking to get into the postseason. And actually, I'm just going to open up with that. Laval has really flown under the radar. It seems like most of the season, mainly hanging out right in the middle of the North Division. Now, as of the time I actually wrote these questions, they're second in the North. In your opinion, what's been the key to that resurgence here in the last few months?
Well, it hasn't been like some otherworldly offense or amazing play that that they have. The Rocket really are just a wear them down, run them roughshod, and capitalize on their mistakes kind of team. They get really good goaltending from Kevin Poulin and solid goaltending from Caden Primo. They had Michael McNiven earlier in the season as well to lean on. So the Rocket are really doing it in spite of a lot of adversity that's been thrown their way all season. They've been rostered by a lot of ECHL guys like Sean Santamont. They've had Peter Abadinato have made really big impacts on the team, and they're Lions guys. They're Scandinavian Lions guys. Kevin Poulin he was signed for the Lions as well, but he's really been the goalie on the team. So really, it's just they're beat them down and capitalize on their mistakes kind of mentality. That mentality that, they're like the Habs last season. They were built for the playoffs, and just getting there has been the struggle. But once they get there, that's the kind of team they are.
All right, I personally want to kind of dial the clock a little back to November, and one of the biggest headlines in the province of Quebec was Cole Caulfield. And I mean, after that unreal playoff last year, he really kind of struggled to get his touch back and found himself there in Laval for a cup of coffee. His season's really done just a complete 180 in Montreal with Marty St. Louis taking over that ship, but just kind of focusing more on his time with the Rocket. Did he look like a lot of these younger raw players that maybe needed to work on some areas of his game, or could you just tell that this is an NHL player through and through who just kind of needed to find his confidence and get his game back?
Yeah, no, he was always an NHL caliber player. And I mean, we saw that with the Badgers, and we saw that through the World Juniors, that Caulfield was always going to be pretty much as close to NHL ready as he was going to be. They sent him to Laval right before the Habs went to the playoffs, just to kind of help him transition from the college age level to, getting hit by the Corey Perrys of the world, because he's a small guy. And within that first stint, you really could see okay, he might be too good for the AHL. He's not going to be here for very long. Then he went, and in that playoff run, he was there and he was ready, and he was making rookie mistakes, but they weren't enough to warrant sending him back down to Laval. I want to say that they sent him back down to Laval because they realized that, the Ducharme ship was not going to be righting itself, and whatever they could do to spark some of that confidence and the creativity that he has as a player, because his hockey IQ is unreal. It is off the charts. He's always where he needs to be to make the play or to finish the play, because he's just as good of a playmaker as he is a finisher. That second stint really was just to kind of try and spark something. It wasn't as impressive as his first stint in Laval. And I mean, he didn't really carry much confidence back into Montreal, but he also wasn't there for very long, because injuries and everything that's happening in Montreal has really crippled the Rocket in terms of being able to actually develop players. But honestly, I don't think there was anything that could have been done differently. I think they did everything that they needed to do with Caulfield. And yeah, even from his very first brief transitional stint with Laval, he was always an NHL ready player. He just needed time to adjust to a different kind of game.
Yeah, without a doubt. And here's a scenario for you. Let's say we bring you on in a few weeks and we go to talk about how the Rocket were eliminated in the first round. What went wrong?
It's too easy to say everything, I think. So the Rocket played like a 3 or 4 game stint against the Syracuse Crunch not too long ago. And after that, I wrote an article about how them absolutely dominating the Crunch for 3 games actually highlighted all the things that have been going wrong for the Rocket all season. And the issue with them is that if one thing goes wrong, everything goes wrong. they will crumble like a tower of dominoes. And it starts with one thing, one bad zone exit, and they lose all confidence. So they no longer know how to defend. They can't get goal support because they're not connecting on plays. Their team play just completely disappears and goes down the gutter. So if they get eliminated, it's because of all of these mistakes. Their power play isn't very successful. And that's, I mean, whether or not they get a lot of power plays in the playoffs, their power plays have been a really big issue. But one bad power play derails the whole team. They take really dumb penalties. So they're on the penalty kill for long stretches. They don't take a lot of them. They are they're one of the least penalized teams in the league. But when they take penalties, they'll take like 4 of them in rapid succession and just give the opposing team as many opportunities as possible to score as many goals as possible. And that kind of helps to derail them. If Caden Primo is in the net, he's still really young and he is still really working on his development and his confidence as a goalie. 1 or 2 bad goals will shake him. And if they don't get him out of there in time, or they don't tighten down the defense in time, then it turns into a bloodbath. So it's too easy to say everything, but if one thing goes wrong with the Rocket, everything goes wrong, and that's going to be their biggest weakness or the biggest thing that they're fighting internally in the playoffs.
Well, let's talk about a couple players that could potentially be catalysts here in the playoffs. I mean, they've been kind of leading the team all season. Rafaël Harvey-Pinard and Jean-Sébastien D. You know, they currently lead the team in points and goals. But what is it about those two that leads them to like break out in such a team where scoring seems to be otherwise pretty spread out?
It's the little things, kind of the intangibles for those guys. Rafaël Harvey-Pinard is he gets into the dirty areas and he plays in the paint, and he's not afraid to sacrifice his body and just be in the really like greasy areas in front of the net. And he works really, really hard, but he's also incredibly smart, and he knows where the puck is. He knows where it's going. He knows where the other players on the ice are. With Jean-Sébastien D, it's more that he's got an incredible hockey mind. He is a natural playmaker. He is one of the best playmakers that I have seen in the AHL this year. He will take nothing and turn it into an incredible play, a really good zone entry, and now it's a really good passing play. But he also has a finishing ability. He leads the team in goals, and a lot of those goals are overtime or insurance goals because he has the confidence from his team, from his coach, in himself to be where he needs to be effective on special teams like overtime, the extra attacker, power play, stuff like that. And the same with Harvey-Pinard, who has the confidence. So they're out there the most often. And if you need somebody you can rely on for goals or just to make sure that good things are happening on the ice, you pair Harvey-Pinard and D, and you've got the dream team.
I was going to say, it seems like all the times that Laval has played Cleveland, and I've watched those games, the name I hear the most out of either roster is Harvey-Pinard.
Yeah.
Whether he's down blocking a shot or just, tipping in a rebound or literally any type of play, it's always Harvey-Pinard. And just that name is ingrained in my head right now because of that.
Yeah, he's everywhere all at once. He's exactly where he needs to be. And if you don't see him, if you are the other team and you lose track of Harvey-Pinard, that is on you, because he will get that puck out to Jesse Ylönen or to Lucas Vedamo, and they will finish that play. So yeah, Rafaël Harvey-Pinard has been one of the most impactful players on the team this season. And that makes me sad because that means he's developing really well and the Rocket are going to lose him. And I just enjoy watching him play so much.
Oh, I was going to say the same thing about Jean-Sébastien D. I was just going to say, I feel like every time the Amherst are playing the Rocket, that's the name that just game after game after game. It's just lighting up the score sheet, which has been tough as somebody who watches a lot of Amerks hockey and watches them get scored on a lot. So.
He does like scoring on his former teams. That is for sure.
Well, a lot of guys have been scoring on the Amerks this year, so he's just joining a big club there. But to have success in the postseason, your players got to play, and you got to have a coach who's got the right system to lead your boys up for success. And after several years of coaching in Quebec Major Juniors and being an assistant in Bakersfield, Jean-Francois Houle has his first professional head coaching gig here in Laval. And, after a bit of a shaky start, they're the Rocket #2 in the division, and he seemingly got him rolling right now. And I mean, what's really kind of been like his core philosophy that's helped this team kind of rebound and get him up here near the top of the North?
So I live in Texas. The team I cover is in Quebec, Canada. I don't really have access to the team as much as I would like to have. And all of the pressers that they put on social media are, well, the head coach takes them in French. There are very few English questions in those. So I can't speak on his philosophy, but I can speak on the differences between the team that we saw with largely the same roster under Joël Bouchard and JF Houle. And the difference is subtle, but it's night and day. So they play the same rough and tumble, beat them down, and like make them pay kind of hockey. They play the same playoff style hockey all season long. But the players under Houle have more freedom. They have a lot. The system is a lot more designed for adaptability from what we have seen. Whereas Bouchard would play, the same kind of lines, the same kind of everything against every single opponent. So it's the subtle differences where as like what we saw of Bouchard, even just on like the social media that they would post, he was very much like, I'm a coach and I should be respected. But with Houle, everything that we've seen, he is just having fun with them. He's just he's a coach, but he's a coach who coached kids. So he realizes that hockey still needs to be fun for adults because he coaches in the development league. A lot of the players that he coaches are kids, and that kind of bleeds into all of even the veterans. I mean, if you look at a player like Xavier Ouellet that has been on this Rocket team for quite a while, he looks better this season because he looks less restricted and he can play his game. I didn't know that man was that fast. He skates fast. He beats icings, and I never saw that under Lefebvre or under Bouchard. And it's incredible to see these players that you kind of think of as one way get utilized differently. And I would say that's probably a difference in philosophy there. So he knows his players, he knows what they're capable of, but he also knows how to adapt. And I think adaptability is a very big part of his philosophy.
So I know a lot of organizations are trying to get more of a cohesive system between their NHL club and their AHL affiliate. Does it seem like now with Houle and Saint Louis, do you think that's more likely to happen now? Let's say if they stay into next season, because it sounds like they're all allowing a little bit more creativity and letting the players make some decisions on the ice as opposed to maybe what it was at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I can definitely see a lot more synergy between the clubs with Houle and if Marty St. Louis stays on as the head coach. They don't play the same kind of hockey under those two, but I know that players like Michael Pezzetta and Laurent Dauphin and Corey Schooneman, who are Rocket mainstays, have been up with the Habs. And the difference between Dominique Ducharme and Marty St. Louis is that these players look more like they looked in Laval. So there's probably definitely a case to be made about these two current coaches having a lot more of a similar mindset or style of coaching. So the synergy is going to be a little bit better when you have to call up between the two teams. So yeah, probably.
Which is just, it's invaluable, right? Like to have that synergy. And kind of going back to the first question that I asked, I'm gonna flip the script a little bit. We bring you on in a couple of weeks, and we have great news. The Rocket have advanced to the next round of the Calder Cup playoffs. What went right?
Again, everything. So what we've seen from the Rocket is they're kind of on a hot streak right now. They haven't won every game, but they have looked so good and so cohesive. And that cohesion, when they are playing like they've been together as a team for more than 5 minutes in the locker room, they are unparalleled. They dominate possession. They dominate offensive zone time. They aren't taking penalties, so they're not playing shorthanded. They are connecting on the power play. They're scoring few and far between, but they're scoring power play goals. So that the team play, that's going to be what's going to get the Rocket out of the North, honestly. Because when they play together, they communicate with each other on the ice, and it's next level. It's like, you think of NHL teams that we see that always, like, they have certain lines. You think of like McDavid and Draisaitl on the power play. You think of like McKinnon and Rantanen in Colorado. You think how well oiled those lines are. That is how the Rocket play when they are playing for each other and when they're playing with each other instead of actively working against each other. So that's what's going to be what went right. They played like a team. They played Rocket hockey. So whenever, you guys probably don't listen to French broadcasts of AHL games, but I do. And what they call, when they say like Laval Rocket hockey, is how we would say it in English, right? But they say Hockey de Rocket. So that's what I jokingly call when they play together. They play Hockey de Rocket. And when they do not play together, they play Laval Rocket hockey. So...
Oh, that is good. Somebody in the marketing department needs to get a hold of that and run with it.
100%. I'm enjoying the little French lesson here. It's great.
My pronunciation is very Louisiana, but the French is accurate, I promise.
So speaking of French and Montreal, obviously Montreal not making the playoffs in the National Hockey League. Worst kept secret, if it even was one. But have there been any talk of any reinforcements coming in from Montreal to possibly help Laval in the playoffs?
Not that I've heard, not that I've seen. The issue here is that there's only 3 players that would really be 4 players maybe that would be really super effective for the Rocket in the playoffs, and that's going to be Dauphin, Pezzetta, Schuneman, and possibly Caulfield. However, none of them were on an AHL roster by trade deadline. So that is going to put a massive dent in their plans to send anybody back down. Coming up, though, if, let's say, the Lions don't do very well in the Kelly Cup playoffs, let's say, they're doing fine and they're not dealing with any major injuries, you might see Abbandonato come back up. You might see Sean Santamon come back up. So I don't think coming from the NHL to the AHL is really something that we're going to see. I think, honestly, Pezzetta, Schuneman, they have kind of earned their considerations for camp next year. So they're kind of in Montreal's mind, like, we're thinking about them for next year, at least for depth pieces. If we can't find anybody in the offseason, if we can't make any trades in the offseason. Possibly Justin Barron, who the Habs got in the Arturi Lehkonen trade with Colorado. He is great, and I think he was on the Eagles roster, but I'm not sure if, like, what's going on with that. So he's the only other person that I could think of might go down. But with the Rocket, bringing new players in and having them try and find chemistry might be detrimental to them. So as far as who is in Laval for the Calder Cup playoffs, because nobody in Montreal is going to see hockey past this month, I'm not really sure. I haven't heard any rumors. Online is mostly the Habs Twitter sphere is mostly we're fans of other teams jokingly now. So I don't know. I think it's more likely that Santamont and Abbandonato come back up from Trois-Rivières than somebody goes down from Montreal.
There's been a bit of a running theme on this pod where that outside of Utica, the North has just been absolute chaos. I mean, I think everyone's kind of had their 5 minutes in every spot from second to sixth. So but it seems that, obviously it's kind of the thing about hockey is that once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. So sitting here as the Rocket and who you want to see, who do you want to avoid, what team do you think Laval matches up best against in division, and who do you really not want to see the Rocket play in a playoff series?
Honestly, the Rocket match up best against the Comets. Those are always like the best games that the Rocket play. They're always they're not even evenly matched because one team will come out and dominate and the other team is just back on their heels, and then the next game they play, it's the opposite, the other team is dominant. So the best matchup is Utica. The one that I want is Syracuse. The Rocket have run roughshod over Syracuse this season. They have their number. They are so good at picking Syracuse apart and disrupting them that I think Syracuse gives them the best chance at advancing to the second round. I don't want to see them play Belleville. I don't know what it is about Belleville, but the Rocket have won, I think, one game all season against Belleville. And it's so weird. These two teams hate each other because they played each other so much in the Canadian division. So much. And last season, it was all Rocket. Belleville won 2 games against the Rocket last season. This season, it's all Belleville, and I don't know what's going on in Belleville and what they've done, but they took Jake Lucchini from the Rocket for future considerations and got good against the Rocket. I don't understand. They also have Michael McNiven now. Michael McNiven's a really good goalie, and if you're smart, you start him against the people whose shots he has read day in and day out at practice. So I don't want to see them play Belleville because those are rough games. They've been rough games all season for the Rocket. They cannot figure out the Senators. I also don't want to have to, as the Rocket correspondent, kind of slightly dislike one of my favorite college hockey players that I've seen play. So don't want to do that. Chris Wilkie on the Belleville Senators. He started in Rockford. He's a Senator now. He used to play at Colorado College. And when I was living in Colorado, I actually went to a game. So then I was hooked on Colorado College, and they're not great. But his dad and his mom and his sister were there, and they were watching warm-ups and stuff, and his sister was banging on the glass trying to get his attention. Said hi. I was like, is that your brother? She's excitedly, yes. Turns out his dad is David Wilkie, who played for the Habs for a hot minute in the 90s. But Chris Wilkie is one of my favorite college players that I've seen play, just because I think he plays a really fun game. I don't want to have to dislike him for even a hot split second. So I wish he'd go back to Rockford, please.
Well, just to kind of go back to Deanna's points here about how they're going to match up, just to get some stats behind it, just because I kind of like to bring those up where applicable. So Laval versus the Comets this season. Laval has the edge, 3-2, 1-0. Against Syracuse, Laval has the edge too, 4-2, 0-0. But against the Senators, Belleville, not surprisingly, has the edge, 8-4-0. So I would say your analysis, I agree with you, 100% spot on.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about the Senators. I don't know why they cannot figure them out, but they can't. And that would be a very rough series, especially because it's Laval's first time in the postseason. Granted, they've only been around for 5 years, but Sylvain Lefebvre was in charge of the Rocket for the first 2 years of their existence. And then you've got Bouchard, but Bouchard inherited Lefebvre's team and they were awful. And then the pandemic. So for the Rockets' first postseason, they deserve, from what this team has like been through, especially with Quebec having some of the strictest COVID protocols on the continent. They deserve something better than Belleville for their first playoff series. So
deserving something better than Belleville also feels like something that a marketing department needs to get a hold of.
they should just get with me. I'm great at this. I used to call them the Joel Bouchard Boys School for Ice Hockey Excellence Laval campus. That's a t-shirt. Like, they just gotta like, I got ideas, man. I watch every game. I could give you some stuff, you know?
I love it. All right. Well, Deanna, if our listeners would like to read more of your work or follow what you have to say about Laval on a more consistent basis, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at FPH Rocket.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, for the nice little lessons and some amazing insight into Laval Rocket hockey. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it the correct way. Let's hope that it's that way and not the way I just said it.
Yeah. Lucky do Rocket.
Like, one note as a continuity error. I was looking up at the ticker here, and it said end of the third. Rochester was up 3-1, or Rockford was up 3-1 on Chicago. But then I was like, wait a minute, they started the same time as the Iowa Grand Rapids game, and it says end of the third, but it was the end of the second, so the game's still going on. They're down 3-1, but the game's still going on. So my fault. I'm missing that.
AHL, get it together. Come on. I mean, both those teams are in playoff contention, which means it's time to move on to playoff watch. Of course, we're in the time of the season where all of these playoff clinches are going to be coming at us fast and furious. So actually, just to kind of wrap up from last week's segment, both teams that were eligible to clinch last week actually did. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at them and see where everything stands. So in the East, we had one team, the Providence Bruins, clinching their berth in the 2022 Calder Cup Playoffs this past Friday evening. Like we said, the last Friday was a big day in AHL hockey. So their clinch came when the Hartford Wolfpack lost in Toronto 4-1. So they didn't even have to do anything.
Because of course.
Yeah, of course. So this will be the 8th consecutive trip to the Calder Cup playoffs and the Bruins' 23rd overall. In the West, we have the Milwaukee Admirals clinching a berth in the 2022 Calder Cup playoffs on Saturday night when they came from behind to earn a point in a 5-4 overtime loss to the Iowa Wild. Now, of course, they are the AHL affiliate of the Nashville Predators, making their 16th appearance since joining the AHL in 2001 and 2002. And then finally, the Pacific Division is set thanks to the San Diego Gulls earning that 7th and final spot in the playoffs this past Saturday evening. They punched their ticket when Tucson lost to Colorado 6-5. Now, San Diego, top affiliate of the Anaheim Ducks, actually reached the Western Conference Finals in 2019. This will be their 4th appearance in the playoffs. So just a quick rundown of the teams that are clinched as of Tuesday evening. We have Charlotte, Springfield, and Providence in the Atlantic, Utica in the North. Like we said, that division's crazy wide open. Central, Chicago, Manitoba, Milwaukee, and then your 7 in the Pacific, Stockton, Ontario, Abbotsford, Bakersfield, Henderson, San Diego.
Now, you missed Colorado there.
Aha, I did. Well, Colorado's in there too. Sorry, guys. I have one too few birds.
We still love our Eagles. It's okay.
Yes, it's okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for catching that. So now let's go over the teams eliminated. Of course, you have San Jose and Tucson out of the Pacific Division, and then the Cleveland Monsters out of the North. There look to be 4 teams that can possibly clinch this week. Out of the Atlantic, we have Wilkes-Barre Scranton, who need 6 points. They play Hershey tonight. and they actually won that game. So there's 2 of those points. They won 3-0. Then they will be at Providence on Friday, at Springfield on Saturday, and at Hartford on Sunday. So they got that dreaded 3-3. Okay, so Hershey needs 4 points. Of course, they were at Wilkes-Barre Scranton, so they got no points there. They'll be at Lehigh Valley Friday, playing Lehigh Valley at home on Saturday, and they will be playing Syracuse on Sunday. Again, a dreaded 3-3. Bridgeport needs 4 points. They will be playing Springfield on Friday, Hartford Saturday. And then in the Central, we have Rockford, who will be at Chicago Tuesday. Right now, as we're recording this, it is the end of the second period. They are up 3-1. They will be playing Grand Rapids on Wednesday, Manitoba on Saturday, and Iowa on Sunday. All right, so we'll go ahead and just do a quick, because we already went through this, but we'll do a quick look at the quest for the Holy Grail in the Atlantic. But stop me if you heard this before, but a week can make a huge difference in the world. Last week, Providence was sitting in third, vying for their playoff spot. Now they're first in the Atlantic with a clinched spot. I mean, a 4-game win streak going 6-3, 1-0 in your last 10 doesn't hurt, but it's a tight race in the top of the Atlantic. Lots of jockeying for position. I mean, Providence is sitting at a .615, where, Charlotte and Springfield are at .614. So it's, like I said, lots of jockeying for position. But it looks like Hartford and Lehigh Valley, like we said, will be the ones left out. So your rankings are Providence, Charlotte, Springfield, Wilkes-Barre Scranton, Hershey, Bridgeport, Hartford, and Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, I don't think the top seed in that division is going to get solved until the last day of the season. That's what I'm getting that feeling real quick.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And while the top seed in the North might be pretty much done deal, though, with the way the Utica's played recently and the way that Laval's played recently, maybe it's not necessarily a done deal. But Belleville has looked to maybe clear itself from this pack of folks down at 5 and 6, trying to make the last spot. They've won their last 4 games, and really they're getting hot at the right time. And it looks like it's probably going to come down to Rochester and Toronto, who, as of this recording, or as we put this together, had magic numbers of 11 and 12 respectively. So, I mean, those two are going to be in it down to the wire. It's going to be really fascinating to see how that one ends up.
And over in the Central, I mean, everything's kind of remained same as it ever was. And other than Chicago kind of doing what we expected them to do all year and clinching that division. So they're sitting up there up top. Manitoba and Milwaukee pretty firmly entrenched in that 2-3 spot. Followed with that, you got Rockford, and the last playoff spot is Iowa, still sitting there clinging on with a 515 point percentage. And the 2 teams chasing them, Texas and Grand Rapids, are at 500. Grand Rapids is making a fight of it tonight, though. They, after giving up 3 opening goals, they've come within 1. It's a 3-2 game down in Des Moines, and I mean, this team just they certainly like to put themselves into those holes, but they don't quit, and they're going to make it interesting here. So sorry if I seem a little spaced out, but I'm trying to make sure that if I can see a historical comeback happen and something really that can change your team's season, like that, this is it, Grand Rapids. Your season, this is your season's on the line. 20 minutes ago.
Feels like the kind of moment that they're going to end up finding a way to make this a 3-point game and complicate that race even more, right? But looking at the Pacific, nothing really complicated here. This one's all figured out. We've got the 7 teams jostling for position happening here, kind of in the middle of the pack. But Stockton's lost their last 2 in regulation, which, I mean, you probably have to look really hard to find the last time they've done that. And they might just potentially be at risk of losing that first overall spot if Ontario keeps it going and if Stockton keeps struggling. It'll be fascinating to see how that one works out. The Canucks have points in their last 7. Henderson seems to be finding their groove at the right time, and the Gulls are lucky that 7 teams make it into the playoffs out of this division.
I like how we say Stockton losing 2 games in regulation is them struggling.
I mean,
compared to what they've done all year, it is, but It's pretty
all
funny.
about the context.
San Jose would like to have a word with you there, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'd like to have a word with San Jose. So,
just for context, San Jose is on a 0-10 2-0 streak.
is that bad?
Yes.
Is that not good?
It makes Cleveland look amazing right now.
In fact, San Jose's maximum point percentage is still under 400.
Take it to the max. What's their minimum, just out of curiosity? I'm gonna bet that number. That's the number I'm betting.
A 3-3-8-2.
Oh.
You know what?
Gross.
Yeah, that sounds right. 3 games left. I'll take it.
I mean, Cleveland is a 4-0-1-3 minimum with 6
Sounds
games
good. I'll take
remaining.
it.
Yeah, but it's still over 4.
I mean, true. Not by much. By what? 1/1000th?
Woof.
Yeah.
Ouch. All right, guys. Obviously, we're talking about the teams that we don't want to watch. So how about the teams that we do want to watch in our Game of the Week picks? So, guys, Atlantic Division, what are we watching?
I got Saturday's game. We got Hartford going into Bridgeport. And I mean, Bridgeport can really finally hammer that nail in the last one in the coffin of Hartford's just disastrous second half of the season. And it would be, it's the last game for Bridgeport. So I think this would be poetic, if anything else, to kind of just really put an exclamation point on the Wolfpack here. Just to, I don't even have enough words for him.
Yeah, I mean, I have to retweet you here. Like, I mean, it has to be that matchup, right? Like, this one matters more than any other in the Atlantic this weekend, and it'll be fun to watch.
Going over to the north, I got Sunday. We got Rochester going into Cleveland, and this is the second in a must-win series against just a cupcake for the Amherst. So, if they don't take the 4 points here, well, they have one more game left against Utica left in the season, so they might as well just pack it up. I mean, you got to take these points from Cleveland.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm going to go with the other side of that coin and the other side of that north fight. Go ahead and give me Toronto and Laval on Friday. Like you said, Rochester's got a little bit of an easier road this weekend, so Toronto's really going to want to make sure they get as many points as they can. This one matters more than I think anybody would have imagined it would have a few weeks ago, and it's not the last time that these two teams are going to meet over the course of the next few weeks with a lot on the line, so give me Toronto and Laval.
Moving on over the Central, I alluded to it earlier, but I mean, pick one. Friday, Saturday, Texas at Iowa. 2 teams, 1 playoff spot. I think the winner of this series likely takes that 5th seed to the bank. Sorry, Grand Rapids. You got 3 games coming up against Chicago. That's a bit of a doozy.
And speaking about those games against Chicago, I'm going to go ahead and go with Chicago, the Furniture City on Friday. The Griffins, they've got the second toughest schedule remaining in all of the league. Doesn't bode well when you're trying to get out of the basement of a division, but they're going to want to pick up as many points as they possibly can at Van Andel, and so this is their chance to start off right against the Chicago team that, like you mentioned earlier in the show, might have some goaltending concerns. It's time for guys like Jonathan Berggren to really step up, and we'll see how it goes.
No other possible reason you picked that game, though, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, it couldn't be because we're going to all 3 be there.
There you go.
$3 night. Hey-o.
3/5 of your Holy Grail podcast team will be there. Just having some fun. Come say hi. Maybe not. It's a cheap drinks and food night, so maybe not.
Yeah, if you see me with 8 hot dogs in my hand, mind your business.
If you see me with 8 beers in my hand, I welcome all.
I'll just be trying to keep them in line.
Thank you.
Best of luck on that one.
I'm the designated group older sister that has to keep everybody in line.
You are. Let's go around for sure. I got us some travelers.
Get over to the Pacific. I'm gonna go for a different angle here. Now, since we have all the playoff teams locked in here, I'm going with either Friday or Saturday. San Jose at Henderson. And at the time of this recording, as we've said, the Cuda have lost 12 straight games. Probably going to make it a baker's dozen on Wednesday against Bakersfield. I actually did not think of that pun as I was saying it, but it works. And barring a win over the Condors, this is the Cuda's last stand. Not what you wanted this season, obviously, but you got to at least try and go out with a win, right?
You would hope. Cuda's last stand is good. That's good for marketing. Speaking of Deanna being on the show, Abbotsford and Bakersfield is going to be a lot of fun. I think next Tuesday. Obviously, they're jostling for some position. This is a potential playoff matchup, which might be a hint for the bonus round if we get there. So keep that in the back of your back pocket. But it's going to be a lot of fun to watch and see how this one goes.
All right. We have reached that part of the show. We're starting to wind it down, but Jeremy was actually the victor in my playoff bonus round last week. So he gets the honors this week. So what do you have for us?
All right, guys. I have my bonus round on a paper plate. I wrote it on the back of a paper plate.
That's amazing.
Which was crazy because then I realized that I could have just done this online and it would have been much easier. But here we are. Technology be darned. So as of right now, so this is based off of the standings going into tonight. We've got some first round matchups to look forward to. And if you know anything about this show, you know that we are all really confused about what this playoff format is or why it is. So without cheating, I'm going to ask y'all if you can name me the 7 first round matchups as they are right now, looking at the standings. And whoever can name
No, I cannot.
No,
I cannot.
I think I can get the Central, which would be Iowa and Rockford. I mean, that's simple. In the Pacific, it would be Ontario, San Diego, Colorado, and Henderson, Abbotsford and Bakersfield. And in the North, it would be Rochester and.
But this was going into tonight.
Yeah, so I mean, you can say Rochester / Toronto. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in the Atlantic, I don't even remember how that format goes.
Is Wilkes-Barre Hershey one of them?
I think it's Bridgeport and Hershey. Does that sound right? No.
I think it's Wilkes. 1 and 2 get the bye. Springfield.
I thought it was
Springfield, no. Bridgeport.
Oh, I have no idea.
Hershey, Wilkes-Barre for the North or for the Atlantic.
All right. Well, Deana, I'll give you the win in the Atlantic because that is exactly correct. That's currently what we're looking at. But then, Andrew, pretty much spot on across the board with the rest of the matchups. This is going to be so hard to keep track of as we go down the line and as we go to finish the season. So this was my way of holding myself accountable to knowing how in the heck this thing works. The other fascinating piece of this, the Pacific, again, kind of just doing whatever it wants. Are they reseeding after the first round and everybody else isn't? Love it.
Yes.
It's the Pacific's league and we're all just living in it. So I'm really glad to be here.
So the way that the Pacific is going is number 1, which right now is Stockton, will take, if I'm remembering this right, the lowest seeded from the first round winners. And then the next matchup in that division semifinal is the highest seeded first round winner and then the middle seeded first round winner.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, so out of the ordinary for the Pacific to kind of create their own playoff rules and just kind of do their own thing, right? Like
so in the Atlantic, their division semifinals is the number 1 team, which right now is Providence, going against the lower seeded first round winner, and then number 2 Charlotte goes against the higher seeded first round winner. So it's not like, okay, the winner of that 3-6 matchup gets to go directly against Providence,
Right.
or the number 1, 4-5 goes against number 2. They're doing that reseeding thing too. Whereas the North and Central are different. These buys are just so weird.
So weird. Almost like having a 23 team playoff is just strange.
It's almost like it's a little too much.
It's almost like we're doing a lot.
Like the goals are skidding like through 5 straight games right now, and they're just kind of going to be happy to be there because they got to play Ontario for at least 2 games. At least 2.
All right. Well, guys, that's going to be it for the Holy Grail this week. If you like us, please subscribe, like, share, rate this podcast, tell all your friends. And if you want to chat with us some more, see our takes and our coverage in real time, be sure to give us all a follow on Twitter. I am at FPH Monsters.
You can find me at FPH Wolves or at FPH Griffins. It depends if you want to follow someone who's in the playoffs or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not sure if you want to follow somebody who's in the playoffs or not, you can follow me because who knows how the Americans are going to do at FPH Americans.
And then, of course, if you'd like to follow our special guest, Deanna McFeron, you can find her over at FPH Rocket. You can find all of our written work at fieldpasshockey.com. You can catch any Charlotte Checkers games on the Field Pass Hockey app with live broadcasts. And of course, check out all the other Field Pass Hockey podcasts inside the SPHL with James Hayes, the 3 Periods podcast, which covers the ECHL with Matthew Harding, Syracuse Speaks with Alexander Ackerman, gives you everything Syracuse Crunch. And then, of course, Monsters Musings with Jay Forrester and myself covering the Cleveland Monsters. On behalf of all of us here at the Holy Grail, we hope you have an amazing week, and we will see you next Thursday. Bye.
This has been the Holy Grail Podcast. Have a question or a topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.